Unpacking the Bosch pneumatically governed diesel injection pump. If you have a W115 or earlier Mercedes diesel, like a 240D, 220D, 190D, 200D, you have this pump. This pump was used until 1976 in all the four-cylinder Mercedes diesels. And if you have a 5-cylinder 300D or 240D 3.0, it was not used on any of those cars. So we're going to talk a little bit today about the features of this pump so that you kind of understand how it works. Then we're going to talk about two major items that go wrong on it in our next video. So at the back of the pump we have the pneumatic governor. This fitting receives vacuum from the intake manifold to control a leather injection pump diaphragm to move the pump rack fore and aft under load. And one of the most fascinating things about this pump is that it actually, even though it has a throttle connection here to sort of mitigate the movement of the diaphragm just a little bit, it does not need to be connected, like this thing does not need to be connected for the pump to work. It is all remotely controlled. In other words, let's call it drive-by vacuum. Now on the other side of the pump, we have some other neat things. We have the shutoff cable bracket, which is where the shutoff cable goes and attaches to this other arm that's linked to the rack. And when you pull it this way, it goes into full enrichment mode for starting. This is linked to the starter cable. And when you move this thing this way, it moves it into shut-off mode, where it kills the fuel supply so that the engine can actually shut off like it's supposed to. Now, what about some of the other features on this pump? Well, first of all, it does not have engine oil supply. It has it has no oil supply from the engine. You have to fill it using this cap. And people often see this little bleed tube on the side and wonder what it's for. This is for extra oil. Now on the side of the pump, anybody who's familiar with diesel injection pumps knows what this is. This is the primer pump. If you're not familiar, you use it to force air out of the filter housing if you change the fuel filter. But what a lot of people also don't know is that on these fittings right here, you have O-rings instead of copper seals, and they can leak. And on these delivery valves here in the top, and you can sort of see in here where the delivery valve element goes, it's just a simple piston that goes up and down that's buffered by a spring. You have O-rings as well, and these can leak. So because you have O-rings that can leak both here and here, it's a good idea if you ever have to pull this pump out to seal it. Now, people wonder how to time these pumps. Well, the first thing is on the front of the pump there's a notch in the drive gear, and on the face of the pump you have a little indicator mark as well, and this indicator mark is going to be right by this screw here in the top left corner, yeah, that would be your left, top left corner, my right. And you want the two to line up, and that, if you can lock them together, and by the way, if you want to lock them together, there's a little locking screw port here. Just be real gentle with it, because if you go too tight, you will break the pump body. You can actually lock the pump in its timing, and then fine-tune the timing using the last drop drip method, or the compressed air delivery method that I like to use, where you basically turn it until this delivery valve closes, and then you know that you're at beginning of delivery. Now, one of the things about these pumps that really always fascinated me was just how simple of a design they were. Because the pump is governed essentially by engine manifold vacuum, there's no flyweight, there's no governor, there's no weird assortment of springs. There's just a linkage that essentially pulls the rack fore and aft using engine manifold vacuum. And because of this, and because of the simplicity of this design, these pumps tend to go, you know, in all sorts of vehicles, and similar designs are used in the 300 SL, 300 SC, and 300 Adenauer in the early 60s to provide what I would call a pretty amazing form of gasoline injection as well. Now, with the gasoline injection, there were problems with it being too lean. With diesel systems, because the fuel essentially cools the cylinder a little bit, you know, just like in gasoline engines, but unlike gasoline engines, because it doesn't evaporate and because it has some lubricative properties. Leaner is better on a diesel than a gas engine. With the gas engine, you don't want to go too lean. But anyway, this is the Mercedes pneumatically controlled diesel injection pump. And in our next video, we're going to talk about how to troubleshoot the pneumatic governor and what might go wrong. So we'll see you in the next video. And please like, share, subscribe, tap the bell for notifications, and leave a comment below. And thank you to all of our Patreon supporters.